Hi, everyone. Welcome to 5 Decades of Killjoy Feminism, a show celebrating Professor Ama Ata Aidoo, who is here with us in the studio today. We can beam her up. And I just wanted to start by saying this is just an extraordinary opportunity and just a shockingly amazing coincidence that we have managed to get her here. And I guess I am waiting to beam her up. Oh, there you are. Thank you for joining us,
Hello.
Professor. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you. I want to welcome you from the Radical Books Collective, from Africa as a Country, from Brittle Paper, and the Armah Institute for Emotional Justice. So thank you very much for coming. And I'm going to, just say a little bit about you, even though just to honor you, we are here to celebrate you. And I'm just going to give a bio. And then I will ask you some questions, and then we want to listen to you. So,
Okay.
okay. So, Professor Ama Ata Aidoo was born in Ghana and continues her extraordinary and prolific 6 decade career as a writer, educator, and leader. And she has turned a young 82 this year. She started writing at a young age, decided to pursue her calling while she was only a student at the University of Ghana. Professor Aidoo wrote 2 plays while she was still at the university, Dilemma of a Ghost and Anowa.
Oh.
However, it was her novel, Our Sister Killjoy, that was to catapult her to fame. She has also worked as an academic for several years, has held fellowships and teaching appointments in several universities and colleges in the United States, the United Kingdom, and Ghana. And she has delivered the Walter Rodney Vision of Africa lectures in London in 1986. And if all this was not enough, Professor Aidoo also became the Minister of Education in 1982 under the Jerry Rawlings administration and worked to make education free for all. The political work meant that her writing took a backseat, but eventually she returned to it with a vengeance and not only produced a spate of new work, but she won the 1992 Commonwealth Writers' Prize for her novel Changes, a love story, and founded a nonprofit dedicated to supporting and promoting the work of African women writers. Professor Aidoo has a truly vast range of publication. I will not name it here. I suspect that everyone who is watching is already familiar with some of it, if not all her work. I will just, a very quick personal note, my encounter with the incredible Ama Ata Aidoo's work was not Our Sister Killjoy, but a different, powerful and emotionally intense novel called Changes, a love story. And even though I was Indian and not Ghanaian, the troubles and pleasures of these city women were immediately ones that I knew. Love, friendship, motherhood, desire, pressures of family, being caught between tradition and a changing world, all of this was so familiar. And the book, I think, also gave shape to the concept of patriarchy, which is a word we throw around a lot, but Changes makes it possible to locate it around us and also within us. And I think the book also made the theoretical notion of transnational feminism and transnational solidarity a living idea to me. I read Our Sister Killjoy later on, and the book was an absolute revolution. And it traveled and moved in the world as a great text of anti colonialism, feminism. But what it reminds us is that we owe so much of what we know to Black African feminism. And more importantly, I want to emphasize that it is this capacity to build bridges across regions and continents, these writings that allow us all to relate to one another, is why we were so keen to invite you, Professor Aidoo. So from the Radical Books Collective, we are thrilled to welcome you for your vision, your brilliance, your courage in articulating the impossible, the radical, unsayable. Thank you so very much. So I just want to invite you to say a few words. We are celebrating 45 years of the publication of Our Sister Killjoy. And then I can follow it up with a few questions.
Thank you very much. Um, your name, Bhakti.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is such an incredible honor and acknowledgement of my work and myself. And I would like to say a very big thank you. In fact, I would like the audience, wherever they are, to clap, to join me in clapping. Thank you very much for this. Um, yes, you say you are Indian, and beyond the concept, I mean, or the reality of the fact that uh, we are all one people globally. Huh? My question to you before I continue my remarks is, like you are Indian, I'm Ghanaian. Why this interest? And you know that our sister Killjoy is not only uh, very much based in Ghana, but I admit it also goes to other places. So why Killjoy? Especially when you talk so much feelingly and warmly about changes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
I,
putting
I mean,
it to you as
I
a question before I go on.
I just think changes is something that I emotionally was attached to first. That was the first book of yours that I read. But I
Uh-huh.
think Our Sister Killjoy is politically, um, even though technically I think it was written in the late 60s, it's as if it applies to today. So I can't, you know, so no matter how feelingly I speak about changes, I have feelings for Our Sister Killjoy, but I also think that its political intensity is very strong, and I think it's very applicable, and I think it's very current, and I think it's very global actually. The
Thank
way we
you.
interact with Europe, all of that is in there.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Yeah.
Now, back to now. I'm getting myself back to our sister Killjoy. First of all, Killjoy has become a shortened form. Our sister Killjoy has really become the normal, the current short form of the title of the book. It was I something like Our Sister Killjoy, or Reflections from a Black-eyed Squint. And it also had another subtitle, uh, uh, you know, something like Tales in 4 episodes, um, stories in 4 episodes. But when I sent it to my publishers, they took it. I mean, that Longman took it immediately, but they said, "What is this thing about something in 4 episodes? We are going to publish it as a novel."
Hmm.
So the decision to regard it as a novel came from my publishers. And it's something that I've always been curious about in terms of how I regard, this book, which is my own production, and yet other people maybe saw more in it than I did. The other issue about Killjoy is that people, some critics, have told me that it's an experimental book, it's an experimental novel. But and it's nice, I mean, to be
Mhm.
told your work is experimental and all that. But the thing is that when I was writing it, I wasn't thinking that it was an experimental anything. It was just the way it came out, the way my words came out, the way I saw the page, the page, the paper, and my words. I think I was, it was part of my hubris that I thought that I could put one word on a page and let that word be the only occupant of the page. And then, of course, it got to 2 pages and then 3 pages. And
Mm.
then the novel just, took off and
Mhm.
became a kind of a normal narrative. But even that, people have either queried me or commended me for the fact that it is not like changes,
Mhm.
as you mentioned. I mean, it is not once upon a time was this girl and stuff. Um, uh, our sister Killjoy sometimes breaks into poetry, uh, sometimes into drama. And I did all of that because that's how the novel, in quotes, insisted on coming out. Um, I
Mhm.
think I'll stop here. I could go on and on and on. And then the issue of it taking what someone said 77 years or 50.
No.
I mean, the time it I started writing it
Mhm.
to the time it got published, how many years was it? 54 or something.
Yeah. No, no, 11 years. So
It was,
it says that you wrote it in 1966 and then it was published in 77.
yeah, 11 years. Now, 1966 is an interest. In fact, until you told me, I had forgotten when I started writing this novel.
Yeah.
That's a confession. Because 1966 is also when my country, Ghana, went through the trauma of having its first and brilliant development oriented leader who loved us. When he was overthrown in a coup d'etat. And
Mm.
I'm talking about Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. You see, so I don't know whether that influenced me, in terms of writing the novel or what. But the truth of the matter is, I don't remember exactly when I started writing this novel.
Mhm.
Uh, One thing I would like to draw attention to is that since I did not even start writing it as a novel, I mean, they were like 4 long stories. That's what,
Mhm.
4 or 5 long stories. That's what Our Sister Killjoy is, isn't it?
Mhm.
And so, um, to say when, well, I mean, different parts of it got written at different times of my life.
Mhm.
And that's why it's always surprised myself how I managed to eventually pull it together, send it to the publishers, and for them to say that no, 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 it's not any episodes in four
Mhm.
whatever, but it's a novel.
Right, right, right. Thank you. And you explaining that you started writing it um, after the coup makes sense
Mm,
because there's such a rage in it. There's such a and this is one of the things that is so powerful about the novel, this very articulate kind of rage that the character that Sissie kind of works
yeah.
through. She doesn't really work through, I mean, at some level she works through, especially towards the end when she writes about love. But maybe you wanna say how you came on this word killjoy. I love this word, and I think we all know what the word killjoy means. Many of us have had the pleasure to be killjoys at family occasions, in classrooms. And Sissy is very much a killjoy. She's always speaking against everything, and colonialism, racism. These are all killjoy topics. So I just wanted to know how you came upon the word, and also why this word, because it doesn't come in the text of the book as much.
But you've answered your own question. It's because Sissy was aware herself
Mm-hmm.
that she's a killjoy,
Mm-hmm.
because she's anti-colonial, because everybody considers her a troublemaker, someone who is wild. I mean, you're a kind of permanent elephant in a china shop type
Mm-hmm.
person
Yeah.
who I mean, when she appears, people want to dive, because sooner or later they think she's going to say something to embarrass them. She
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want to behave herself. Um, and that's the kind of person who she I mean who she is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the word killjoy, you say, how did I come upon it? Well, it's the same English you and I are speaking.
Yeah.
You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I don't know. I didn't sit down and say Sissy is a killjoy.
Mm-hmm.
But you see, the process of writing. I don't know if you are a writer. Are you?
I'm a
Or I
writer, but more academic things, not.
yeah, you're an academic. You teach
Yeah.
literature.
Yes.
The thing is that these things come to us writers, and here permit me to include others, because we are writers. After, we may not know one another, on the personal level, but we do recognize one another's work,
Mm-hmm.
um, as being valid or authentic, or good, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And my point is that a word like killjoy, is it? It's killjoy.
Yeah.
I didn't sit down to say she's going to be a killjoy. It just came
Mm-hmm.
to me, like like titles and characters come to other writers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Did you think that it would come to signify a type of feminist thinking or practice? Is that what you were attempting to do? That it's a type of feminism, this
I
killjoy?
time at the time I was writing this uh, book, or the different parts of it, frankly, I was too young to be this clear about my own feminism.
Right.
Once, I mean, there came a time in my life, as I was growing up, that when I realized that, oh, I am a feminist, oh, I am a socialist, oh, I am a Pan-Africanist, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I didn't begin, with these notions clearly defined. I mean, as definitions of myself. I grew into an awareness of them. Maybe I was them. I mean, like a feminist. Of course, I was a feminist. I must have been a feminist right from the day my mother gave birth to me. Looking back. But then at the time, I didn't know,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I grew into
Mm-hmm.
into what I was to become,
Yeah.
and what I was to become, uh, sadly or not, included a killjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. The counterpoint to the killjoy is the focus you place, I'm sure unknowingly but somewhat knowingly too, on love. And this is something that's so beautiful in all your works, even though the love is not unicorns and rainbows and happy endings. But I just wondered why does
Why
love.
love? But love, love counts the most, right? I
Mhm,
mean, love. Um, I don't know how to describe it because other people, wiser people from ancient times have dealt with love, right? I mean, so it will seem to me a bit cheeky and quite unnecessary for me to uh, try to unravel it, whatever. But I mean, from whichever angle.
mhm,
But love is certainly the most important human and even animal feeling, isn't it? I mean, love, I don't know where any of us would be without love. And I'm not talking about romance and sex and procreation only. I'm talking also about the feeling that we get, for some particular person or some group of people, which would compel us, even when we don't have what it takes, to look for what it takes in order to make them feel good.
mhm, mhm.
You see,
Yeah.
that's love. And the whole world needs it. And if we didn't love one another, we wouldn't be. Even the sort of rickety world, I mean, we wouldn't be here. We would be here, but
Mhm.
loveless, um, we would be, I don't want to say useless.
Maybe a little useless. No, I mean the reason I ask is because there is a kind of divide between, if you're a serious feminist, this is not a topic you write about, right? But you are someone who kind of seamlessly succeeds in doing
Oh,
that.
but now I'm asking you a question.
Hmm.
What do you mean when you say that if you're a serious feminist, you don't talk about love? What do you talk about? What do you, or you don't love? What do you do? Feminism, look, feminism is an ideological viewpoint, right? Like
Hmm.
socialism, like all the isms, right?
Hmm.
But it only works on love. I mean, using love as a vehicle. If you're a feminist and then you don't have love, what do you have?
Hmm.
How do you work it out? You know, I'm not very good. What I mean, not I used to be, but now with age, I've become a little unsure of myself with
Mhm.
quotations. But in the Christian Bible, there is some quotation which says, if I do this and I don't have love, I am like a symbol. And if I do this other thing and I don't have love, then again I am useless. Look,
Mhm.
you can't be a feminist without love. Am I screaming at you?
No, I I I agree with everything you're saying. I'm just telling you there are certain currents that create a binary. But you've answered perfectly, and I think we should all forge forward with more thinking on love. I agree.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
Because that's the only way we will achieve anything.
Hmm.
Only way
Yeah,
we would achieve anything.
of
Because
course.
if we are feminists, however feminists, good feminists, dedicated feminists, brilliant feminists we are, if we don't have love, we achieve nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to ask you one more question, and then we have a wonderful group of people waiting to talk to you as well who are in the studio. So, the organization that I run, called the Radical Books Collective, we think a lot
Mm-hmm.
about the politics of publishing, which books get published, which books get left out, what's reviewed, which one get
Mm-hmm.
fancy agents, which ones win prizes. So African literature has had a complicated history, but these days we are also witnessing like a boom. There's a lot of writing from the African continent that we are accessing here in the West, and in generally there's more publishing even on the continent itself. I just wanted to hear your thoughts or experiences on the politics of publishing African literature.
Well, my dear, that should have been the one question. I mean, if that was the one question you were going to ask, it would have taken the whole time, right?
It's true.
As far as I'm concerned, publishing is the word that triggers me any day or night,
Oh gosh.
anywhere, any week, any year, simply because it's been such a hard way for me to stay as a writer and for me to know human beings. I think that apart from possibly one publisher only that I've met in my very long publishing life, all the publishers that into whose hands my books fell and I fell were evil.
Oh my
And
god.
I'm using this word without any apologies whatsoever. You know, you show them your manuscript, or I show a publisher my manuscript, and they immediately say something like, "We get back to you." And they get back to me immediately. In fact, my first play, The Dilemma of a Ghost,
Mhm.
uh, I was still a student, know. Also, I was also a student. So many of my stuff, uh, except changes maybe, and one or two, I mean, and some of my poems and short stories were the only ones. I mean, Killjoy and our friend and um, some of my plays, one of my plays was started when I was a student, and um, I mean, I have grown to distrust, and again, I use the term unapologetically, publishers, because when my play The Dilemma of a Ghost was produced at Legon, the University of Ghana, where I was then in my third year, going on to fourth year, or second year, going on to third year. I don't even remember whether, at the time we were 3 years or 4 years, but that's another story. Anyway, when it was produced, and the representative of Longman at the time heard about it, he came to watch it some of the nights, and then later on actually came back to the university, asked for where I was shown my room. He came and said, "Give me the manuscript for your play." And I said, "Why?" He said, "We want to publish it." And the thing is, I was young. I don't know how old I was, 20 something. And I was so happy. I couldn't believe it. Hey, I've written something which they want to make into a book. We signed a contract,
Yeah.
and payment became an issue. I may have been wrong, I may still be wrong, except that I know I'm not. But except for one publisher, in my life here in Ghana now, no publisher from beginning from that man through some women in England, other women publishers in the US, all over, translators, they never paid me
Oh my
my
gosh.
my full royalties. I was always convinced that the most I got from my royalties was about 1/10 of what we had agreed on and put down in
Mm.
print. So, talking about publishers, please, so it's a very sad story as far as I'm concerned. Right now,
Terrible.
I still, most of my, nearly all my books are still in print, and I'm going through the same things with publishers and translators and editors and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's yeah, you're right. It's a much longer conversation, but I'm so sorry that this has been your experience.
Oh
It's
yes,
just
it
wrong.
has. It has.
Yeah.
It's been the experience.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
um, as I said, not some, only one publisher I've encountered who treated me as an author with any kind of decency.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. That's terrible. But at least I think the one thing we can say that the power of your writing still succeeded in going out. It still somehow managed to enter the world in this extremely powerful way. But
But you know why? It's because I'm a masochist. If I had taken into consideration the amount of pain
mhm,
writing through publishers dealt me, I wouldn't be writing.
mhm,
I would have stopped writing a long time ago, but I'm still writing.
mhm. I'm
So
glad.
what does that make me? A masochist.
I suppose, but I'm glad that you are. We are all glad that you are. I'm going to move us into the next part of our program, and I'm going to invite Esther Armah, Ainehi Edoro, Meg Arenberg, and Otoniya, Julianne Okot Bitek, all on here. And we're going to say hi, and then everyone's going to ask you a question. And Meg as
Okay.
well. Where is she?
Okay. I'm here.
Yes. All right. So let's start with you, Esther Armah. I think you go a little more little ways back with Professor Aidoo than the rest of us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Professor Aidoo, such an honor, such a beautiful honor. A very, very
Hi. Hi, Esther.
hi, Prof. A very quick
How are
story.
you?
Oh, I'm very well. I'm very well. Thank you. I'm in pure fangirl mode in this space with you. And I'm so excited that we get to give you your flowers in all these multiple international literary ways via the power of the digital village.
Thank you.
Um, so, very quick story. How did I meet Prof. Aidoo? So, I came across her. I'm joining you from Accra in Ghana. It was March 2015 on air at City FM, The Breakfast Show. I was a commentator, and next to me, there was an extraordinary, powerful woman called Kina Likimani. And
My daughter.
the topic, yes, the topic was the state of Blackness. What is the state of Blackness? And Ben Avlay, who's an extraordinary host in this country, was the host of the discussion. We finish the discussion, we come off air. I'm not sure if Kina called you or you called her, but I remember Kina tapped me on the shoulder, and I didn't know that she was your daughter and that you were her mother. Kina tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Oh, my mother wants to say hello." So I figured, oh, there's a nice mom on the phone who just wants to say hello. So I pick up the phone and I say, "Oh, hello, this is Esther, who's this?" And then you say your name, and you couldn't see it, but I just kind of lay down on the floor saying, "Oh my God, I'm in conversation with
Oh,
Prof.
listen
Aidoo."
to you.
And you said some beautiful words. So my question connects to the subject of that panel. As somebody has been in the world of literature, governance, politics, centering gender and race in all these extraordinary ways. I wonder for you, what excites you about the state of global Blackness and the possibilities for intra-racial healing? And what are your thoughts on that? Thank you.
Well, Esther, I hope I don't disappoint you too much. But you see, the issue of global, Blackness, I have not transcended it. That's not possible. But it's big. And, you know, I think that Black people, um, I wouldn't want to, this is an international audience. So it's like we are stepping aside and to have our own conversation. But I will still answer a bit, but it probably would not be enough. Um, it would not be as much as you are looking for. Well, the thing is, we know there's nothing wrong with Black people anywhere, whether we are in Africa, we are in Ghana, Africa, Europe, the US, whatever. The problem is our leadership. So, as long as our leaders are busy hating us, and I mean hating,
Hmm.
we are not going to get anywhere.
Hmm.
Um, as far that's how I see it. So the challenge facing us is what we can do for ourselves in spite of our leadership.
Mhm. Mhm.
Have I answered one question? Because I don't want to talk and talk and talk. But that's how I see it. You know, uh, uh, the global racial healing. The one, I mean, if you put it, since you put it that way, then I can also uh, respond by saying that, you know, we Black people, we are here in Africa, our original home, but then we are also there in the US, and we are there in England and the rest of Europe. I don't know. Someone has told me that, why, if you go to Alaska and you don't meet anybody else, a human being, you are bound to meet a Nigerian. Because it's, it's a joke to comfort ourselves with. But what it also means is that we are dispersed, right?
Mm.
We travel, we migrate, and and migration, like all movements, has its positive side and its negative side.
Mhm.
I mean, if, as we say in Akan, and I will translate, Sefia ya and Nchemankoro Binukrum, right?
Mhm.
Uh, the fear yenti. I mean, if home provided my needs, or at least helped me to acquire my needs, I wouldn't be roaming around the world.
Mhm.
So that's the negative. The positive is also what our elders said. If you travel, you expand your world. I mean, so travel is good, migration is good. And so everything, nothing really is I mean, like monopoly, monochrome. So everything is
Mm.
Oops.
Oh, I think we have a. I think maybe the screen is
yes.
frozen.
Oh, there.
Okay.
No, what I'm saying is, at least I would like to stop at these two with you, Esther. There was a third one which I wasn't sure I I could answer, or I wanted to, but what was it?
Oh,
Hello?
oh, you mean the other question that I asked? No, I wanted to just honor you with the one question. So that's a great answer. Thank you so much. The organization that I work with deals with issues of global Blackness and racial healing. So I was very intrigued to hear your perspective on those two things.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Thank you.
We can bring up Ainehi Edoro up. Ainehi, do you have a question? There she is.
Hello,
Hi,
everybody.
hi,
Hello,
you.
hello, Professor Aidoo. It is an honor to share this space with you, and I wanted to just use the opportunity to thank Bhakti and her amazing team for making the space possible, as well as thanking you for being here and sharing space with us.
You
As
are
I
welcome.
Great, wonderful. As I look at the comment section, it's clear to me that there is there are generations of women and feminists in the space, and I find that to be very special. Um, the question I have is about ancestry, and this comes from the fact that this semester I have been teaching a course titled African Feminisms, and it's a big lecture course, about 170 students. And in the
Nice.
first unit, we read an essay that you wrote, something about being an African woman writer. And one of the things that stood out for me as I prepared my lecture for that essay is that I realized how privileged I was as a Nigerian woman writing about literature and feminism, that I had all these women to read. People like yourself, Michere Mogo, Miriam Tlali, Flora Nwapa. I had a
Mhm.
rich ancestry of women's writing. And that's really special. You know, I'm writing at the turn of the 21st century, and I have decades and decades of what you and your contemporaries wrote. And that's really great.
Oh,
So it makes me
that's
think,
good to hear.
go on, what were you saying?
No, no, I said that's good to hear.
Yes, yeah, it is. And it makes me feel less intellectually lonely because I have a ground to stand on. Um, but it made me think about what it was like for you and this and your fellow contemporary women writers, you know, writing in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, is that you didn't have what we have today, right? So what was it like at that time being the first, right?
But
Writing.
we were not the first. We were never the first. Or I definitely didn't consider us the first. Because before I came or Flora came, before we all came, we had women writers, we had feminists. So there was nothing special or first about us. In Ghana, to cut to be quite blunt, we had women in literature like Mrs. Effa Sutherland or Dr. Effa Sutherland. I don't know whether you've heard
Yes,
of
I
her.
have, and I've
But
read her plays.
Google her. Yes. And Effa, as we crazily called her, was already up. A grown-up woman, a teacher, a researcher, a feminist. Or well, my daughter is prompting me to say that I was her research assistant. I was her assistant. Working with someone like Effa Sutherland. Now I look back and I said, hey, Amata, as you Nigerians would say, who born you? You who born you? How? What good winds blew you to this woman's, world? So and then when feminists, we had, I think the first we had a woman, Annie Jage, who the first, I don't know, the first judge of the Supreme Court of Ghana. When they set up the Supreme Court of Ghana as an independent uh, entity, as a country, the first Supreme Court was a woman. We had among industrialists, a woman who came out to be, in the end, the president of the Industrialist Association, and the producer of the best stuff, products, ordinary things for soup, like palm oil.
Mhm.
Huh? And then as for the writers, even before Mrs. Sutherland, there was Babel Dove, a contemporary of Dr. Nkrumah and Dr. Dankwa. So me, I was never the first. I'm not even so sure I was the second. I just had giants on whose shoulders I stood.
Yes.
Yes, and I mean, as for struggles, if we struggled, and we did, I was not the only one. Have you heard of Bessie Head?
Yes.
Exactly. And you mentioned you mentioned Mr. Mugo, Flora Waba. Do you see Anna Kuzwayo, who produced her first novel when she was 70 years old? So I've always been in good company. I mean, enabling company. And I reject entirely the notion that I was the first to do anything. I wasn't. And even feminism. I mean, like people like my mother who didn't go to school, they were feminists. That's the other thing. We think that feminism started with formal education, but we are Africans. Have you heard of that crazy Egyptian woman who yes, she was not Nefertiti, the beautiful one, but the one who used to wear fake beards so that as a pharaoh they would believe. I mean, because
Wow.
she wanted, yeah, she wanted. I mean, she was a pharaoh, and she had to wear a beard in order that people will believe that she was capable, because they associated beards with being male, with patriarchy. Huh?
Yeah.
Yes, and after all, look at all of you, the young African women writers. You know, we for you make us feel good, because it's not even like those who came first, who came long ago. It's also about you. Have you read Daughters of Africa?
Busby's
Uh-huh.
projects, they are
Yes,
wonderful.
Yeah.
yes. If you go in there, we are there. I mean, a whole big volume of women writers.
Yeah.
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 It's true
So
what you're saying. And I think that there's something that Busby says a lot. Bhakti and I, we had the chance to spend some time with her in Berlin about maybe 6 weeks ago. She was
Yeah.
at the African Books Festival. Margaret
oh,
Busby. Margaret,
of
yeah,
course,
Margaret Busby, yes.
Margaret.
She's
Yes.
wonderful. And one of the things that she kept repeating over and over again is that we have to understand that we didn't fall from the sky. That when we tell these stories about African feminism today, it's important to, do the genealogical work, like think back and realize that we're all coming from somewhere. And that there are
Mm,
others who, we're sort of standing on the shoulder of other people. And I think my question, which you answered beautifully, is, is to kind of, it's to think about the ways that we as this contemporary generation, we are standing kind of on your shoulders. It's nice to hear you say that, yes, that you were also standing
thank
on other people's shoulders. And
yes.
there is a kind of beauty in being able to tell that story, that kind of long, generational story. So thank you very much.
You
Yeah.
are most welcome.
Yeah. Should we move to the East Africans now? Uh, I think Meg Arenberg has a question, and then we'll have Julianne's question.
Hello, Professor Aidoo. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And
You are most welcome. Hello.
And thank you also for your work. It's been a real pleasure and an honor to learn from you over the years. I'm thinking a little bit back to the beginning of your conversation with Bhakti about Our Sister Killjoy and how you were sort of told that it was an experimental novel, that you had characterized it to yourself differently. Because I wanted to ask you specifically about literary form and
About
literary form. You've written across many different forms over the course of your career. Your first published books were plays. We opened the program talking about your novels. Professor Edoro has mentioned your essays. You've also published several collections of short stories, poetry, and stories for children. So, and of course, you've also highlighted how these boundaries are not hard and fast, that there's poetry in your drama and in your prose as well. But I wanted to ask you to talk a little bit about the affordances and the limitations of these different genres. Like, what does each allow you to do that the others do not?
Well, to begin with, I've gone up, as you say, I've tried to write in all these forms, across all these genres, because, once I became aware of myself as a writer, because I had even published my first play before before I had the nerve to describe myself as a writer. Other people were calling me a writer the moment my first short story was written and my first poem was written. But you see, uh, luckily for young writers today, like they do one poem and they say they are writers, which is okay. The only thing is that the generational thing, if we talk about it, I think we were a bit more shy, a bit more, we lacked more confidence. So you would publish this and that and that and that, and then still not have the courage to call yourself a writer. But in terms of once I told myself that I was a writer, then it occurred to me that people would say you are a novelist. So why do you write poetry? I said I'm also. I suppose it's also because I'm a poet. And then they will say, but you've done, and so why did you start writing start with the dilemma of a ghost, or why did you start writing drama? And I said, maybe because I'm a playwright. Eventually I had to, and then I did short stories and the novels and so on. And one day, by that time, I was really quite, like old, not old like now, but somewhere along the line, I said, Ama Ata Aidoo, stop, this whole business of I am not this, but I am that, I'm just a writer. There are writers like me, writers who write across the genres, not because they want to, but because that's where their imagination takes them. I can think of, I suppose in Africa, our biggest example, a Nobel Prize winner, is Wole Soyinka. He has done plays, he has done poetry, He has even attempted novels and, and so on and so forth. So there are writers like, I mean, I'm not the only one. There are writers like me. And we just go where our talent takes us. Sometimes, or in fact, nearly every time, except once, I mean, the material occurs to me at the same time as the form is going to take in writing. What I mean, I know when I'm going to write a poem, or I know when I'm going to do a short story. The only thing that messes me up a bit is the novel, because it's too many words, the novel is just too many words. And now that I mean, I admitted this to myself a long time ago. Um, I mean, I do better, I think, with poetry, the short story, drama, and so on and so forth. I mean, I've done 2 novels. One of them is a straightforward Once Upon a Time. The other is, in episodes. I mean, and the other, are you listening?
Yes.
I started writing it, Josephine, 18 years ago, ZMD, 18 years ago, and I haven't finished. You see, I mean, I started
Oh,
uh,
she's back.
Mama invited me to South Africa, to Cape Town, and when I was leaving, in fact, I had been in touch with her, and I said I wanted to come to her institute and do some writing, because I knew she was inviting social scientists. I said, for once in your life, have a writer, and the writer is me. So she was amused. She said, you must come. Sent me a ticket. I went. And then the novel I was going to write, which is about left-handedness, never got written. The moment I got to Cape Town, I started a novel which, with the working title, Zero Means Downstairs. And that's 18 years ago. It's a huge book by my writing standard, and it's still not finished. So that's it.
Yeah.
We'll wait for it. We'll wait
Thank
until
you
the end
very
of
much.
time.
Oh, by the way, I mean, Josephine, shall we promise that by this time next year?
This is
My
your
people say I shouldn't promise.
accountability group now. You've made a
Yes.
promise to many people watching.
Yes, but I hope that in a few years, no, in a year. But you see, you don't. In fact, I've broken the writer's rule on this novel so many times. First of all, we are not supposed to tell anybody about what we're writing until the manuscript is ready to go to the publisher. Now, this novel, I've told about it in conferences. I mean, I've read from it. It has had a hard time, but I'm not giving up on it.
Don't.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Julianne, do you want to do the final question?
Yes. Thank you so much, Professor Aidoo.
You're welcome.
I want to also say, Auntie Ama, in the on behalf of so many people in the chat room who see you as professor, also as auntie, right?
I know
Yeah.
that one cannot get rid of the auntie, but
Yes.
it's okay.
Yes, thank you, and I want to appreciate how generous you have been with your answers and your time, because we've had so much more than the questions that were offered to you. And for me, who was going to ask about language, I feel like so much of so much of your what I was going to ask about has been answered already. But before
Okay.
I ask my question, I also want to acknowledge the women in the chat room, in the panel. Hello, everybody. It's very nice. Thank you, Bhakti, for gathering us here together. Right, and it's nice to be in the same room, even though we are not in the same physical space. And everybody in the chat, thank you. My question is about.
But before you go on,
Yes.
please, can I interrupt a bit?
Yes, please.
You are Otoniya Bitek?
Yes.
Yeah. Are you Okot's relative, daughter,
Daughter.
You are. Oh, now I don't want to start tearing up. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm all right. Thank you.
I know your father, or knew your father. He was a friend. We were all in Nairobi together. Yeah. Please, you keep on talking, otherwise. Yeah.
Thank you. For me, it's all these years later, I'm still figuring out my father's friends and getting to know him through other people's relationships. So I'm glad you met and you were friends.
This is her daughter, Kina. Hi, Julian. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Her father was Kenyan.
Uganda.
It's amazing you are on the call because usually, my mother is such a crybaby. So when she's doing these events, I always tell her. Today she managed to mention Efwa Sutherland's name without breaking into tears. So she was doing well.
And then your father's
And then
name
your
came
father's name came up.
Well, I was also doing well until now.
Mommy, you see what you have done.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too. Well, you know what? These are good tears. I want to really appreciate how you said writing a novel has novels often have too many words. I myself have been writing a book which sometimes is creative nonfiction, sometimes is report. Right now, it's a novel. 11 years, I'm still working on it.
Well, welcome to the group.
Yes, I'm a poet, and so I hear you very much when you say too many words, right? I can really appreciate that. But my question is about language. And initially, I wanted to think about English language specifically. But at the beginning of our conversation, you told Bhakti, it's the language that brings us together. We're all speaking it. And so it's the colonial heritage. Now we say
Yes.
King English. What are we going to do about it? But in your Our Sister Killjoy, which I reread a couple of days ago, not a couple of days, a week ago, I was noticing that yes, it is in English, but the sensibilities are not English. So how languages come through English. And so I was hoping maybe you could talk about your relationship with language as you write, but also the voice that comes through, which you already said the stories comes to you, right? And maybe a little bit, if you can say, who are you reading these days?
About the language, you said you noticed, I mean, it's a colonial. Some time ago, I read a book, and I think I have to research back for the title and its author, but it was written by either a Singaporean or a Malaysian person, or a young woman, and it will be Singaporean. And she was talking about British colonization and the fact that in the end, what what it does to us, the colonized, is to cut our tongues. You know, the imagery is so incredibly true and painful, horrific, and real. You know, we get our tongues cut. Because what does it do? It rips off our own languages and institutes it, replaces them with itself. There is a good part to it though, and I'm coming to that. Talking of language, English also puts me in mind, you are an East African, of a controversy that my brother Gugi Wationgo has been, you know Gugi.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. You know the controversy he's been struggling with and engaging right from a long time ago about English and Gikuyu. I mean, he was, because he feels like most of us that really being compelled to write in English is a bummer. The only thing is that, of course, he 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 has had the courage to take the controversy even further, right? So that in the end, the idea is that he would write, apart from his earlier books, Weep Not Child and so on. Now he writes first, or that's what he says, first in English, and no, first in Kikuyu, and then gets translated into English. Um, we've seen this thing, the English thing, worked or considered negatively and positively across the world. But what can we do? You know, I mean, it's become our working language, and I mean, some of us, we have all had to work with English. At least those of us who are in the English speaking areas. The as somebody pointed out, those in Francophone Africa are even worse. Um, the Portuguese, someone from Mozambique, attended the conference, and 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 she said something which I've never forgotten, which is really tragic but also funny. She said that for her, working in speaking and working in Portuguese is like another African tribal language, because as far as she's concerned, nobody, I mean, the Portuguese places are so few that if you write in Portuguese, no, very few people will hear of your work. So she was electing to write in English. Can you imagine? It's like the parable or the fable about the shirt, which somebody didn't like and left it under a tree. And as soon as he started walking away, another person came, took up the shirt, shook it up, and was dancing with joy. Uh, I mean, and we know of other places in Africa where English was not the original language, but which they have taken uh, up now.
Mm.
So, what shall we do? What shall we say? I mean, uh, we do the best we can,
Right.
right? And especially when I'm talking to younger Africans and African women, especially, that if we stopped and worried about this business of English, um, we would never write. And it's better to at least write than not at all. Because some of us, if we didn't get all this stuff, crazy stuff, out of our imagination and our minds, we'll probably go crazy.
Mhm.
So we use English. Meanwhile, it is not all, something doom and whatever the expression is. Because because of this language, I can talk to you. You are from East Africa.
Yes.
I'm from West Africa. You see, here we are conversing, and Bhakti is from India, and
Mhm.
we are talking English.
Mhm.
So it's I mean 12, 13 of one and whatever, half it. Is it?
Half a dozen of the other.
Yeah, there's half a dozen of the other.
Yes.
Uh, we take it and do the best we can,
Yes.
and hoping that if there is a resolution in the future, our children and better still, our grandchildren and their children will resolve so that it is no more a dichotomy, a
Mhm.
question, a self confession, nothing. Because they can decide that, English, let us speak some,
Mhm.
and then not worry about it at all.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
which some people unfortunately have started to do by not letting their children learn any African language. I
Yes.
think that's, by the way, counterproductive.
Mm.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Oh, uh, and I think we're coming
Is there
coming.
any more left?
Well, who
No,
are you reading? Who are you
Hmm?
reading? Who are
Who
you
am
reading?
I reading?
Yes.
First, that's not a fair question, by the way. Because then, if I tell you who I'm reading, who I was reading, then the other people who expect me to read them will know I'm not reading. So I'm not answering that question. Eh?
That's fair.
No. My daughter, you see, my daughter doesn't want me to sound so dumb. So she says she's here, prompting me to say MK,
You'll be reading
MK.
NK. We'll be reading NK Jemison.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but other people too.
Yeah.
Dostoevsky. Yes, mind her. MK Jemison is this wonderful. Have you heard of her?
Yes, she teaches
Wonderful,
here.
wonderful science fiction writer.
Yes.
Who wrote the Obelisk Gate, uh, the first season,
Mhm.
and the sky, the, the stone sky. Fantastic
Yes.
trilogy.
Yes.
And every time I'm talking about books, she says, mention M.K. Jameson. Mention him. But you see, she knows, first of all, because of my eyes, I'm not reading much, but I'm listening to
Uh-huh.
Audible,
Yes.
Okay.
a lot of Audible.
Yes.
And, there are writers whom I had read when before my eyes started developing problems, who I'm still reading in Audible.
Mm-hmm.
But so many of the writers, I'm just, reading or listening to their works for the first time. Audible.
Yes, yes, the audiobook program kind of.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. You don't need it now, but it is a godsend
Mm-hmm.
to anybody, young or especially the old, us,
Mm-hmm.
who have lost, some level of eyesight,
Mm.
and we can't really read. It's amazing. It's an amazing, amazing. I hope they can hear me. I'm giving them fans, as they say in Ghana. The audible people. Whoever brought the idea, Amazon. Oh gosh. Uh, it's not everything Amazon has done that I approve of, but this one, they've done well.
Mm-hmm.
Audible, yeah. So through Audible, whom am I reading? Whom am I listening to? Audible makes it possible for me to listen to as diverse, a group of writers as my own, as my daughter said, M.K. Jamison, but also a friend of hers, a young Ghanaian who wrote The Sex Lives of African Women.
Yes.
Yes.
Nana Dakwam.
Yes.
I've listened to her,
Mm-hmm.
and she gave me a copy of the book. But by then, I already wasn't reading much. But I've listened to her in Audible, and of course, everything or almost everything that Toni Morrison has written. I've I've read a biography of James Baldwin,
Mm-hmm. Thank
and
you.
I've gone as far as France, and uh, I'm rereading every Western classics. But I started with the Master and Margarita,
Mm-hmm.
by Bukov. So, and in fact, Audible, some may have been abridged, but most of them are full books. The thing is that because uh, you read them when you are at leisure, or in fact, me in the night, like when the days, business is over, it makes it possible for me to read a lot.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. To listen a lot,
Mm-hmm.
even more than when I was reading.
You've spoken like a true auntie. You love everybody. You love all of us. Thank you very much.
Oh, but thank you.
Yeah.
I do love you.
Oh, thank you so much, Professor Aidoo. Thank you, everybody. And I want to say thanks to Kina. If she wants to say hi, she can come and
Then I
say
come
hi.
and say hi.
And I want to
And
also
just,
thank Josephine
uh-huh.
Gima for helping
In
me.
fact,
Josephine,
Oh,
in
everyone's
fact,
there. Excellent.
Josephine, come round.
come round. There.
You guys, Josephine here has been
Hey.
my mother's assistant for 10 years. So
Oh,
please
my
say thank
goodness.
you. I'm an only child. I wouldn't know what I would do without Josephine. I kid you not. So
It's true.
she's very modest,
Hi,
but
let me hug you again.
I goes with her. She takes, honestly, she's there.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yes, yes,
I'm
she
glad
is.
it turned into a party at the end, as much as we can
Yes,
have.
yes.
Let's
Oh,
hope
we should
let's
have
hope for a real life version of this
wine.
one day. soon.
Pardon?
I said
Hello?
we can keep hoping for a real life version of this. Everybody come together.
Oh,
Not-
wouldn't that be sweet?
I hope we can do that.
So where are you? I mean, you said you are an Indian.
Yes.
Where are you?
I am currently I teach at the University of Connecticut. So it's near Hartford.
Oh, it's the US.
In the US, yes.
Okay, that's where you are.
Yeah.
And I know people are leaving comments.
Yes.
The chat, say hi. So you guys, let me help her out. So Molera is on the chat.
Oh.
And Vincent.
Oh.
Akwesio say. Violetta.
Margaret Busby.
And Margaret is on the chat as well.
Margaret.
Yes. A lot of people are still you love.
Oh. I love them too.
All right. Should we sign out? Oh,
Yeah.
and there's Nana. Nana Darko is also saying hi. That's great.
Hi, Nana. How are you?
It's really a party now.
How is my grandchild?
No. She says, hi, Prof. Always inspired by you. And when you ask how your grandchild is, she says, very well.
Okay.
Oh, wonderful.
So, my dears, when we were planning this thing, I had promised both Josephine and Kena, my daughter, that I was going to make it very, very short. Well, I couldn't do that because really, I mean, talking to you people has been wonderful. But still, they say that all good things must come to an end.
Yes.
So I will say thank you very much and sign off.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
much. Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.